Hello, everybody. Looks like we've got a pretty small crowd today, but we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to talk about a couple things that are on my mind and just welcome you to the Aquatics Q&A. The goal here is just to talk about aquatics and to create an environment where people can come chime in. I've got like 10 questions staged, but if you have questions you want us to answer, we're trying to create channels to get those floated to the top. Starting next week, I think we're going to go ahead and switch the format a little bit to where we are kind of creating a reoccurring meeting so people can just chime in a little bit easier and using the webinar platform so we can do Q&A a little easier. But again, people are always welcome to jump into the call. It's July 15th. This summer is very much here. You can tell by a lot of stress and burnout in the aquatics directors and managers group. So what we're going to do, since we don't have a ton of other participants right now, I'm going to go ahead and just jump into some of the questions here. I'll give a quick plug really quick. I do run some CPO classes online through my side gig, Left Coast Aquatics. If you'd like more interest or like to get signed up for some of those classes, I've got a class coming up in August, as well as a couple classes in the fall, including LGI classes in the fall. So let me know, and if you need custom training, just go ahead and send me a message. With that, we'll go ahead and get started here. Our first question of the day, and I was hoping to grab a little bit more commentary from the rest of the group on this one. So, but it seems like this summer it's been like the summer of vomit and poop in the pools. I don't know if it's just because of COVID or not, but Brittany here posted 0 for 3 for vomit poo in the pools this week. We're closed on Mondays, so we had sad face, poop, sad face. Will today be the day we went out? The guards have started a betting pool. LOL. Stay tuned. So I'll be curious to see next week what Brittany finds there. We've ran into a couple. The one question in the group, I think there was a response to that said they had a member complain that if people keep pooping in the pool, they're going to rescind their membership, and I just had to share that with all of my pool friends over text. We saw that one, and then we also saw the one comment from a group member who said yes, we canceled your rental on purpose because of poop in the pool. We totally did that on purpose. So kind of a fun little thing that I think I'm seeing at our facility this summer as well. And I don't know if it's just because we're just getting back to normal levels after COVID and this is what it was, or if it's just something else in the air and the water and people just don't know how to go to the bathroom. I've heard some speculation that because there's a whole couple years of kids that really went to online school first or was delayed in kind of normal school experiences, that there's going to be impacts. And just shooting from the hip, I wonder if they're not used to have to like plan out going to the bathroom more because they were at home more and they just knew how to go and where to go. So interesting thought. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the next question here. Let's see here. Let me get my switcher to work. There we go. So next question, best waterproof AED trainers, go. This one I thought was a really interesting question because I ran a class in early June, a lifeguard training class in an outdoor pool, and it like killed my AED trainers. I have 6 of the Red Cross, what I jokingly call the older Fisher Price AED model trainers. But I saw one of the group members, and I should have pulled up his picture. He actually put his in Ziploc bags. So that was a great idea. I have a little bit of a question about like hooking up pads and stuff. Because we want to simulate that action, right? We want to simulate. Why did it do that? We want to simulate what it's like to get those, pull out the pads, put the pads on, get the connector plugged in, and go through the process. So I don't know if maybe there's a way to kind of double bag and maybe use a like a gasket of some sort or a bunch of super glue to kind of create a hole so you can get that pad through there. I don't know. I'd be curious to know more. But I thought that was a great idea from the group. So if you have other ideas, put them in the messaging, put them on the group. There was a couple good responses. I'm hoping that a couple of mine that died, like none of mine worked by the end of the day, right? I had a class of about 15 with 2 co-instructors. My 5 AED trainers were dead by the end of the day. None of them worked just because it was one of those days where it was raining so hard that I felt like as I'm standing on deck teaching that I would have been drier in the pool with how hard it was raining. So with that, we'll jump into the next question. This is one I was hoping to get a little more group chime in for. I may carry it forward next week. Is how does one get their WSIT and how difficult is it? Recently Red Cross, it's not that recent. It's been about 5 or 6 years ago that Red Cross switched to the model of the academies. So to become an instructor trainer, you have to go to an instructor trainer academy. You apply. There's a brief interview process to get involved with. At least it was 5 or 6 years ago when I did it, because I was one of the first wave of people to go to the IT academies. What I found was it was really good. It was hard. So I went to the LGIT Academy. I do not have my WSIT. The instructor trainer educators pushed us to be better and better to teach. There was a WSIT Academy going on concurrently with ours. And, I thought it was a good experience. I highly recommend it. Like, it was one of the most rewarding experiences, certifications, and pushing me to be a better educator. So that one, I'd love to get more commentary from people that have done that before. So if that doesn't happen, we should be good to, or my apologies. I would like to get more information on that. So, all right. So our next question comes from somebody that I kind of loosely know in the area. So Chloe Hubbard posted onto our Aquatics director group. So the designated staff smoking area at my facility is directly next to the pump house for the pool. We store various pool chemicals in the area, like the people are sitting and smoking within 10 feet of it right up against the structure. I brought up my concern to the owner and he dismissed them, saying it's been that way for 22 years. Am I the only one who thinks this is a terrible idea? If anyone had any information or regulations around this, would be incredibly helpful. I'm in Oregon. So with that one, I would say, I think Oregon's actually says you have to be 15 feet away from windows and doors when you're smoking outside in businesses. So that might be one good place to start. Why does it keep cutting to that? Another thing I would say is, engage and see if there's anywhere else that could be a better spot, come up with some solutions. And just one other thought that jumps out, I've seen you've kind of posted a few comments about people, I don't know the exact specifics or any of the players at the facility you're at, but I've seen a similar trend of this of, well, it's fine. We've always done it this way. It's fine. We've always done it this way. And I've ran into that a lot throughout my career. And, there's a little bit of you pick your battles and you determine if it's something that you are willing to put your career on the line for. Honestly, though, it's also one of those things where it seems like there's only so much you can do as an aquatics professional. And if the people that own the facility or your supervisors really don't, it's not a priority for them, you're not going to change their minds. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's their facility that they are employing you to run. But if they're not prioritizing it, then, it's for you, I would honestly look at other options. I worked in an agency where we had all sorts of conflicts and ideas on how to do things. I thought I was pushing the right thing, and I think I was, But at the end of the day, it didn't matter, and the leadership wanted to go a different direction. There's a lot more involved with that story, but really, it's you kind of have to know when to let go and when it's time to move on to something else. So, um, I feel for you. If there's anything we can do, let me know. I'll shoot you a message offline here and give some more advice on that. So, jumping over to our next question. All right, I'm going to see if my keyboard shortcut works. It did not. Okay. So, looking for advice on the best way to clean this type of system. We're doing a system clean on Saturday and looking for best practices. Thanks in advance. So, this is an example of a pre-coat or a vacuum DE filter. And if you look at it, those long, thin discs are actually the filter elements. So, what happens is the DE gets pulled onto a vacuum onto those discs, and it kind of builds up like a cake batter consistency coat on those elements that holds things in. Periodically, you'll need to replace the media or top it off like with a bump process, similar to how a regenerative media filter works. On this one, my advice for deep clean, I'll switch back to the photo here, is to drain the tank, obviously isolate the system, rinse everything down really well. I've had some good luck using like a small electric power washer. There's these little green ones. I don't know if you have a Harbor Freight nearby you. They work really nice for cleaning filter grids, to take off that little bit more caked in DE material. The other things you can do is make sure you have extra filter grids ready, filter covers. A lot of times they'll develop tears over time, so it's good to replace those so you don't have DE passing back into your pool and you're getting your full filter area. After that deep clean, I'll also degrease them, using kind of a pH neutral, medium duty degreaser of whatever variety you want. But the key thing you need to make sure you do is rinse it way more than you think you need to. I've had problems with getting bubbly and getting stuff that I thought I had it rinsed well and it wasn't quite enough. So I would rinse and drain, let it soak for a little bit and just clean water after you've done the degrease, drain it, rinse really well, and then restart your filter process. DE filters are great. I've had experience with them for the last 5 or 6 years with my current agency, and they really do give a nice water quality. The only downside is it's kind of a pain to handle it. That DE, if you looked at it under a microscope, it would look like a snowflake on steroids, like with sharp razor blades and edges all over the place. What that does is when those grains interlock, they create a really tight mesh that filters out down to the smallest of particles. I was just talking about this in my CPO training, and this isn't a plug. This is just, since the questions are a little light, I'm going to jump on and kind of talk about what I want. So DE filters will filter down to about 4 microns. If you have a current edition of the CPO book, that's on page 136. Whereas a high rate sand filter filters down to about 25 microns without like a flocculant or a coagulant that'll help filter down more. So DE filters are great. Oh, there's Chelsea. Thank you for hopping in there. I'm glad you jumped in because I think your question is like the next question I have on this. So let me see here. Jump over. I'm still on slides. That is so funny because your question was literally the next one I had. And I'd love to talk about it more. That I see all the time jobs, 4-year degree or equivalent experience, and what does this mean to different organizations? I've ran into it and seen it where there's a higher up administrator who just thinks, well, I have a 4-year degree, and we can't just have anybody applying for these positions. It's kind of acts as a filtering mechanism. um, I know from my experience, most aquatics director, or whatever title they have, they want that, even though I don't think you need that. I think it's more a signaling mechanism from administrators who really, it's kind of like the thing where they feel like, well, I paid my dues, and we have these expectations of what we're going to get, and it doesn't matter. I think what matters more is the actual experience and personality and passion for aquatics, a lot more than did you check the boxes for a 4-year degree. And I'm going to be curious to see, as the price of higher education continues to rise and outpace inflation, if that's going to continue to be um, it's going to be a requirement. I would hope it isn't. I think I'm encouraging and pushing wherever I can to not see it as a requirement, and you're looking at more your skills and aptitudes versus did they complete a degree. I don't know if you've got any other thoughts you want to chime in on it with.
Well, I'm currently in my position, and I have 20 plus years, of course, being a lifeguard and stuff. But
Right.
when I came in as a lifeguard with the other guards, of course, I'm hitting 40 this year, so I'm much older than the teenagers, and the facility just wanted somebody to take over and do that. They hadn't had an aquatics director for a while, so a couple
Mhm.
years ago I took over, but I only have a 2-year degree. Um, so that particular director saw in me the ability to handle that stuff, which I've been very grateful for. But it's also intimidating when you're looking at other directors out there and other job postings as they come up and available, not necessarily to switch, but just do what is their experience versus mine. Somebody obviously saw something in me, and that's my confidence level, whatever. But it is a good discussion to have, I think, because you are starting to see that, because even in the camp industry, which my husband works in, you're seeing these kids come in that, oh, I really want to work at camp. And it's like, well, if you want to be a director, you have to have a 4-year degree. And we're starting to see that as an older holdover that, like you said, it'll be interesting to see how this continues to evolve and grow, because there's more kids with more experience and that degree doesn't mean as much. So,
Mhm.
but how many people are still holding on to that as a specific thing?
Yeah, I know. We just went through a hiring process at my day job, and for our supervisor position, it was interesting to see. They actually, they had like the laundry list of requirements. 4-year degree, all of the certs, and at the end of the day, they actually ended up selecting an individual that didn't, almost kind of counter to this, where it was like they had a master's degree and they didn't have as much direct aquatics experience, but they felt like they were going to be a better fit because of culture, organization, and professionalism. Um, I think for me, then I took a little bit of a pause and a step back from that, because it's like, well, what the heck? Why do we have all these certs, and how are you going to make these decisions? But I think it depends on the structure of the organization too. Where if you have other staff that are, subject matter experts, great. They don't need to have that. If they have the certs, then you need somebody who's a leader. I think in smaller agencies, I think it's more important to have somebody who can have certs. It's like, how big is your organization? If it's a small YMCA, you need somebody that can do all the jobs, not necessarily that they have certs. If you're bigger and bigger water parks, you're going to have more of those subject matter experts. But I don't know. I think sometimes some of the administrators get a little too full of themselves of, oh, we want all of this. And then it's like, yeah, but you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, because what you want is actually somebody who can do the job, not that they happen to be in the right place and have the privilege. Or I say privilege, but there's a lot of levels there that go into how people get 4-year degrees, and a lot of times there's some privilege and implicit bias that they don't understand. So I don't know if you got any other
That's
thoughts on
really good
that.
feedback. I appreciate that.
Yeah. My honest opinion, I think I've seen, at least here. So Oregon's weird. It's half as weird as people say it is, and it is in the portrayals on TV. It is not a desolate wasteland of lawlessness. There's definitely issues, but there's also a lot of interesting um, employer protections and stuff. And it's been interesting to see. I think if people think you're a good fit for the job and you can somehow get through the screening process, um, you know, you'll get considered for positions if you have enough experience. I think, and then I always kind of keep in mind, like, if this agency is going to not look at me because they don't have this certification or this experience, then I'm probably not as interested. My advice to everyone is apply, apply, apply. If you think something's going to be a good fit and you think you could do it, um, and go from there. So I don't know. I also, yeah, and so I'll jump on to the next question here. This one I think was kind of interesting. I may kick that back because I know Melissa was going to jump on shortly, so I'm going to come back to that one. This one I've got some experience with, and if you want to chime in, great. If not, no worries. Like most, I do not have enough employees, especially at one of my rural pools. I cannot afford to fire anyone. Nonetheless, a guard who I've written up more times than I should called a pool attendant an effing moron in front of patrons. Not that that matters. Needless to say, the pool has one less guard. And I I feel for that because I've been there. I one of my pools I took over had not enough staff to keep the doors open. I felt like I was constantly there. But what I ended up discovering and finding out is when I'm the person responsible for that, I would much rather just know that I'm going to have to be there for a little bit until I can train someone rather than having a big question mark of how much extra work is this person going to cause for me, or how much am I going to be in my family plans because they're probably going to be there and then they don't show up. Um, and I think culturally allowing those employees to stick around and get away with stuff is really a demotivator to everyone else. Um, I've seen a couple different philosophies, and I tend to fall into the camp of I'm going to give people chances. I'm going to give people chances. I've learned I probably my gut is to give too many chances, so I try to check that and make sure that I'm really taking a step back and saying, is this something that this person actually wants to change, or is it something that they're going to just continue to work on, or they just don't care and we just need to figure out a way to get them somewhere they can care. So with that, I thought this question would have been interesting to post to the group. I'll chime in. And I'm in a pretty, again, I think privilege is something that's kind of interesting to talk about and think about and been on my mind a lot with this. But what are your typical hours during fall and summer? Any parents out there, do you feel like you can have a good work balance and have time with your kids? And so for me, I'm fortunate because I'm not as much into the lifeguard operations. I am fortunate that my position is a represented employee, a union represented employee. So I work 40 hours a week. Now, given that some of our events, I do work flexible schedules. I do work where I may be working odd days and odd hours because of needs of the facility. I think my hard draw is, um, and again, I'm fortunate to be in this position where I know there might be 3 weeks where I'm working every weekend to cover, championship swim meets, but then I'll try to figure out how to get out of that schedule. I think a lot of times exempt supervisors really get pushed too much to cover everything, and there needs to be an understanding that it costs money to run these facilities, and you can't just expect your pool director, who is your exempt manager who doesn't get overtime, to just make everything work. They really need to be able to turn off and set up that time with family. So, I have two kids. I was in those positions before, and I think it's hard to have that balance. And I think what it has to be is it has to take clear communication and planning, and being ruthless about just protecting your time, just ruthless about advocating and working and communicating with your supervisors of, well, this is what we're going to do. And there's going to be periods where there's temporarily, it's like, who are you when you get home to see your children? But then there needs to be the give and take on that it's not sustainable to run that way for much more than a couple weeks at a time. um I know that's something a couple of my other colleagues and I have talked about a lot, and I am really pushing in our organization that our exempt on call person does get periods where, no, they are offline. We will have other people backing them up, and there's a plan in place for that. I think that comes into kind of some continuity of operations planning, where what happens if that person gets hit by a bus? There needs to be like plans in place and people trained, so that if that person gets seriously injured and has to be out, or if there's a medical emergency or whatever it may be, that they can take care of what they need to take care of, and the organization will still go on. And that doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight. It can't just be from, if you're tied into all the operations, to be able to just flip a switch and be like, yep, nope, I can go out. It means, it's a two-way street. The individual needs to be planning and trying to figure out cases and ways to push that information out and to get that information available so people can back them up. But it also requires the organization to say, no, we value you, and it is not sustainable for us to continue to expect you to do everything. I would say if an organization does not do that, it's time to look for a new organization. That's just that's my 2 cents on that one. Jumping into it felt like there was a lot of career related and employee situation questions. Brenda, good to see you here. If you want to chime in at any point, just go ahead. Or if you have other questions, I've got the chat up too. We can pose in a pause. Olivia Richardson posted this week, how do you start the conversation with your boss that you're underpaid? Our association recently raised our guard rates from 10 to 13.25, and I received a 1% raise of less than $500. My boss is already hard on my case about how much we're spending in payroll as it is for lifeguards with the new pay rate. I've only been in my position for less than a year, but I manage 2 departments at a small Y in rural Indiana. When I took the position in November of last year, I was fresh out of college and just excited to have PTO and a salary. I didn't argue for better compensation because I didn't know better. However, I know that I can't survive on my income alone. I've been taken advantage of because my boss knows that I'm married and my husband pays most of our bills. How do I start the conversation? I need to be paid more. It's extremely disheartening to see other non-aquatic jobs paying far more when I'm responsible for so much. I do love what I do and don't want to leave, but I need to be paid a living wage. Exact numbers: I make $43,000 to manage aquatic and maintenance departments, overseeing approximately 35 employees. We have 50 kids in swim lessons with revenue at $3,000 each month, which is 35% higher compared to last year before I moved to this position. I'd like to offer more lessons, but I'm already spending way too much time in the pool and in the chair. And yeah, I'm sorry. That is hard. My experience is you have to be there. There's a lot of good feedback in the comments on this one. I think in some cases you have to walk. If the organization doesn't value you and pay you a fair, a fair salary for you to be able to do the job, and you're seeing other positions and opportunities to be able to, meet your needs. My challenge is to try to find other ways to scratch that itch and serve the industry. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be working full time in it. Um, I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in on this. I know it sounded like they're from the talking about an association. They're at a YMCA. I've noticed a trend that YMCA's tend to pay less than other organizations. Um, Go ahead and leave a pause here for a couple people to jump in if you'd like. And no problem on that. I am going to pop this next question. Oh, is that the last one? That was the last one of that. Um, I don't know if either one of you have any experiences at WSIT or know anybody that can chime in on that one. Um, Talked about that one a little while ago and didn't, I shared my experiences in LGIT, but I know the WSIT is similar. All right. Well, I'm all right with it being a little bit of a shorter day today. I also had one more that I felt like I could talk about. I was stalling a minute because I knew Melissa, who usually is my co-host, had a doctor's appointment, so I was filling some time for this question. But this one is one that I really resonate with me because I ran into this several years ago in my career. Now that I'm closer to 40 than I am 30, I haven't had as much of a problem with this, but I also think it's some mitigation strategies that I developed helped. So, needing some advice, I'm a manager at a city pool. I look fairly young and I am short, which doesn't help, and get mistaken as a high schooler. I'm in my 20s. I get some people still have opinions on that being too young, but all managers at this facility are the same age and never get these issues, and have been a supervisor manager in aquatics for 6 years. Lately, I've had a lot of complaints from guests that I am too young to be the manager when I speak to them about situations. They tend to be disrespectful towards me and comment that they don't need to listen to me, or that they do not want to help me. They do not want me to help them because I am not an adult. I'm sure I'll appreciate the young looks when I am older, but I'm looking for a professional way to respond to these comments from guests, a way to assert myself as a manager and professional without giving into the drama and immaturity of these specific people. Sometimes I'm able to get past that and show my confidence with how to handle the specific situation, to which they apologize afterwards, but I'm not always able to get that far. Any suggestions and ways to handle it would be appreciated. I'm confident in handling many situations, but when people aren't willing to hear me out due to this one reason, it makes it quite difficult. Um, I'll share a quick aside that my first aquatics director job, I think I was 24, and this little older um English, she was from England, she was a doctor. First day of the pool, she walks up to me, are you the new manager? I was like, yeah, I am. You're far too young to be the new manager. That doesn't make any sense. I said, well, I am it, and I am here, and it's really nice to meet you, and if there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. um The group had a lot of good comments. Uniform would be a big one. I know that we all work at swimming pools. It's usually hot, humid, you're running around, you're doing things. But if you're going to be able to be in that manager position, even if you have to be on the stand, just even like getting into a polo versus a traditional guard tee can make a big difference. Um, I think thinking about professionalism, thinking about the way you carry yourself helps. Um, I'd love to hear some other comments from others in the group. They want to chime in on experiences on how to get taken seriously.
I want to share. Wait, hold on. Brenda Romero from El Paso, Texas, and I'm trying to put the camera, and I can't. Hold on. There
There
you
you
go.
go.
There you go. So usually the polos, I think they do make a big difference before we not give it to the our pool managers and head lifeguards, and it does help even if they're young, because a lot of them they're pretty young. They're like early 20s, mid 20s, and they've been lifeguarding some of them since they're 15. So they do have the years of experience, but they started super young. Even myself, I started super young as a lifeguard, but before we didn't have the polos, but it made a difference. Once they see somebody dress a little bit different, they understand that person is the manager or the head lifeguard, and they can take those decisions. But I never, when they're too short, too young, I haven't had one of those. It just seems just the appearance, and that's the manager. They know already. But we've been doing this for a couple years. This is my first complete year in aquatics, but I know we had it before. So they're really happy when they get a new polo. It's like, yes, that does make the difference. Now let them choose the color. It depends on what we're doing. We have a lot of white and red. It's like, but we want different colors. Let's do different colors. I think we can do that. Approve. If it's an incentive to retention too, I like it too.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, we usually have our kind of our shift leaders. They tend to be in polos. Um, and we're a large enough operation at our single site that we have different colors for. So the head lifeguards who are kind of running most of operations tend to be in a blue polo. Our swimming lesson coordinator slash lead supervisors are in a maroon. Our front desk are different colors. So our front desk is able to say you're going to go find somebody in the maroon red polo shirt, and they'll be able to help you with what you need. Or somebody stops, okay, great question, I'm going to send you to the head lifeguard in a blue polo shirt. And then what I did
Okay.
as a manager when I was having those issues is I just had my own separate one, because I was sometimes in rotations, but most of the time I was actually supposed to be more of an administrator. um, so I just found something that was similar to what I'm wearing now, that's a professional polo. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think I was trying to think of a better word to explain this, and it might have a negative connotation, but also kind of your swagger around the pool deck. Not like, like you own the place, but you're comfortable there, and you move with purpose, you're in charge. Um, I know when we train, one of the things that I incorporate with training lifeguards for emergency response is, even if you're nervous and you're not sure what's going on, take that brief pause, move, slow down just a little bit, and move with purpose and work through the steps. And I think there's similar lessons to learn as a supervisor or manager. If somebody asks to see the manager, take that quick deep breath. Okay, I'm probably going to walk into somebody who does not like me or has something that they want to be angry about to me, is why
Mm-hmm.
they're looking for me. So pause, put on my manager face. Don't just run up or act distracted. Just come straight into the situation head on. Like, I know I can fix this problem.
Uh-huh.
Um, and also know that you may not fix the problem for them. They just may want to yell at you. Um, and just hi, hi, my name is Joe. I'm one of the managers here. What can I do for you? And just own it and lean into it. And I think you can't change other people's minds before you start working on it. You have to just go for it. And I think that makes a big difference. My advice to other people is just know that you're not going to win them all. And if you mess up one, try not to let it get under your skin, because I think from reading this response, this person sounds like they've had some good experiences and then they have a bad one, and so that right away when they get questioned, they're I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I'm worried about that. I'm gonna have another one go sideways on me. And I
Mhm.
think being ready for that makes a difference. I don't know if anybody else in the group wants to chime in on that.
No, I think you've got it exactly. It's how you walk in the building. It's how you present yourself on the pool deck, and it's you're the when you present yourself as the person, I'm in charge, I know what's going on. Half of it's so, I mean, something that I've learned, that half of it's just how you present yourself. It's when people think that you've got an answer, then they're more willing to, even if you say, hey, I'm so sorry, we can't do that, and here's why, at least you're giving them an explanation behind the reasoning behind stuff. So for example, when we changed our sauna and steam room policy, it used to be 15 minutes at a time, and I had to switch it to 15 minutes per day because we had people use way too much. And people were initially, of course, very frustrated. But when we said, hey, here's the health reasons why, here's the purposes behind it, even though they weren't happening, they were like, oh, okay, I get it. And so they were mad at me because I was the new person who changed it. Of that, yeah, that's just how that goes sometimes.
Yeah. No, thank you
Sometimes
for
people
that.
just need some help.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'll be honest, I still, 20 years into this, I still get a little nervous sometimes. Like, I don't know. This is a nasty one. I don't know, but I kind of just, okay, well, figure this out. I'm scared, but we'll see. So, um, any other thoughts on that? I kind of got through most of the questions that I had pulled. I don't know if there's any other thoughts or questions that people want to discuss. Um, we've got about 10 more minutes that we scheduled, but again, I can also be more than willing to give that time back to people if they're not. I don't know if you guys saw the heat wave post. The person from Arizona posted that their CJ backboard just melted. That I was just like, no, no. I I see that, and I couldn't do it. I could not do that.
Yeah, our small pool has actually been overheating a whole lot recently just because our air conditioner hasn't been able to keep up. We're in Oklahoma. It's hot. But we're
Yeah,
very thankful right now that we're indoor pools versus outdoor pools.
yeah, yeah. Our indoor pools are. We don't have air conditioning on our natatoriums or dehumidification, so it's just outside air, so it just cooks. Luckily, we've got some air conditioned office spaces for our break areas, which make a big difference. Um, to be able to get guards on their down rotations inside and cooling off. So, is everybody here? I know we've talked about nationwide lifeguard shortages and everything. Is How is it working in your guys' areas and facilities? Are you still seeing, horrendous shortages? Is it getting better, or are you back to staffing levels?
We continue to be short in El Paso, and the city, they put money for promotion, for recruitment, and they have billboards, they have radio announcements, radio in the news everywhere. Last week we had a pre-test, so I changed how we do the interviews, because before they used to come in certified, they're not coming certified, so they're applying, they're not certified, so we call them for a pre-test, because if we want to certify them, they have to do a pre-test. About 70 people, only 3 showed up last week, only 3, and 2 didn't pass the pre-test. They just wanted to give it a try. It's like, but it's like you're applying for a lifeguard job. Do you know what lifeguard means? So not good. And then this week we had another session. We ended up with 7, no 6, because we put the other person. So we're gonna have a class of 7 people next week. That's it. But we'll still, what would happen with the classes lately, out of those 7, we are gonna lose 2 or 3. Like I don't know. Hopefully, we have the 5 that we need, but it's been super slow. And then I having they're going back to school. The school district starting August the 1st, so it's a short summer for us in El Paso. So July is like how we usually feel on August when they're going back to school. Now it's happening this week. We see like it's slow just because parents go last minute vacation, then the back to school shopping and everything else. But it's kind of slowing down a little bit. But we still want to open other pools. So I'm gonna close. I have a 50-meter pool outdoor. We're gonna close that one August the 7th, and I'm moving the staff to indoor pools because we have to get ready for the swim teams and on our private team rentals and everything else. It's like we have to do it early. That way they get used to the new facility, start like cleaning, making sure we're ready to go. And we're closing. We cannot maintain the outdoor pool. It's going to be minimal maintenance. It's a plaster pool, but we won't be able to rent it out even because we don't have the staff. So we're still the same square. Like last year, I started with 92 lifeguards. With the turnover rate that we have 88, and we're doing more hours of operation. So everybody's very stretched. So
Wow.
the same. The same.
How about you, Chelsea?
We're actually, like I said, we're a really small facility, so we stay well staffed for the most part. My kids that came home from college, I only had one of them that I needed as a full-time lifeguard, and I do have a couple of kids getting ready to head off, so that's when I'm getting ready to go. All right, time to start looking at what hours we're going to need, because I've got kids that can work more right now because it's summer. But I average about 10 lifeguards total between my 2 pools for the week. And like I said, right now we're good. But as our local water park starts closing for the summer, we're going to start reaching out to them and being like, hey, anybody who wants to keep being a lifeguard, we got you. Come on over to the Y. And I'll be trying to keep swim lessons going because parents have been like we've been very busy with those pretty steadily since March, and that's something I want to continue if at all possible. So
That's that's great. How far out do you schedule usually? I'm just kind of curious. Like, do you like I know do you build like a month at a time or like, a couple weeks at a time?
so my scheduling manager, we actually have somebody else who does the scheduling for the whole facility, because I have kids that cross over between both the weight room and the front desk and the lifeguarding. Like everybody's kind of dual purpose, which makes it more complicated, but it's also nicer sometimes because they can go from weight room to pool, etc. So Debbie does my scheduling, and she does it the Monday of the week before. So we always do it about a week at a time, and we encourage the kids. We use the app called Sling, and I know there was a discussion on that somewhere in one of these groups. We're asking about it, and we love it. It's been great for making announcements for that's where I put out all my lifeguard announcements, because I don't always see them all depending on their schedule. My 5 a.m. lifeguard, I know I certainly don't see him very often because I'm not there at 5 a.m. But it helps, and then they can put in their unavailability. They can schedule time off on their side of things, and then we do our best to work around and accommodate their schedules. Doing it about a week at a time. But then Debbie also she's minded this way. This is what I was saying yesterday to her brain, because her brain works this way. She will sit down and say, how many hours do you guys wanting to work per week? So if they're saying, oh, I want 10 to 15 or whatever, she puts it into a spreadsheet on Excel and says, even if we had the minimum hours for everybody, we still need one more lifeguard. Or even if everybody got their minimum, we're totally good. We're over hours. She figures that out for me. And then I go, okay, I need to hire more people, or, hey, I need to look at something else.
Chelsea, I have a question for you. So you oversee a swimming pool and a rec center. What is it with the weight room? What do you have?
I work at a small YMCA in Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I am the for the pools, but some of my lifeguards also work as weight room attendants. So they cross over between the different departments. So we have one person doing the scheduling for the whole facility
Mhm.
versus normally I would probably be doing just my lifeguards and somebody else would be just the weight room. But because we have kids that cross over between the different departments, we have one person scheduling the whole facility. That's just where our facility.
Um, All right, because we have a new building with the city, and this is the first time we opened last May, and the building we call it, it's an urban park. That's what it is. So it has a basketball court. Actually, it's two in one. It has a weight room with an indoor track, and then it has a multi-purpose room, big, usually like it could probably fit like 200, 300 people. Then we have two smaller activity rooms where you do Zumba, yoga, everything else. And then it's one entrance. Well, actually, it's two entrances, but it gets you to one point where it's the front desk. And then we have the natatorium too. So the natatorium and activity pool. So I have an aquatic supervisor for the natatorium and activity pool, but the center is managed by the recreation division, the one I used to oversee. So because I used to oversee recreation, they kind of follow my guidance and instructions like, hey, you're not supposed to be doing that. Hey, you have to work together. But I do see the struggle with aquatics and rec center. We like I'm being fine. It's like, give me the rec center, give me the quad, everything. I'll handle all that building completely just because I noticed just to schedule even the staff, like some of my staff is a full attendance. They can do also waive room registration or checking people, pass out a basketball, whatever they need. So sometimes the two of them, they're working together, but it will make it much easier one person running. And I wanted to see how will you run the weight room people, because they have a weight room area where they have to have someone there just checking in that nobody sneaks in without paying the membership or anything like that, because the basketball court is totally free for the community. So that
Yeah,
is a free activity.
the front desk is up at the front and you have to go through the doors into the rest of the facility, and then the weight room's right there. And so you have different people for different departments. But yeah, like I said, Debbie does all of my scheduling for the whole facility, and she's actually also our marketing director. So she's really got a lot on her plate that she's tackling there. But it's just when you have a small enough facility, you wear many hats. So that's just how it goes.
Yes, I think anywhere you go, you have two hats. What I'm gonna be today? What is today? Yes, okay, no,
I mean,
that's nice to hear.
yeah, and that's part of why I love it, because I wonder, what's going to be the adventure of the day today.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to somebody about a career advancement opportunity. I was like, well, what's the ratio of meetings to adventures? Because if it's more meetings than adventures, I don't want to do it. I want to be out, you know, getting stuff done.
Yeah.
Um, I know one of the things that I've struggled with, and working in different facilities, and because I used to work at, like, most of my aquatics career was in smaller facilities where I kind of had my finger on everything. And
Yeah.
so I didn't have to necessarily like over communicate, because it was like, well, it's the same person and it's me. So I don't need to like lay out the plan so everybody knows what's going on, because I can just respond. But as I've worked in larger facilities, worked for a newer YMCA that had similar to what Brenda was talking about basketball and weight rooms and exercise classes, to now, a large aquatics facility with huge swim lessons, rental programs, swim teams. It's like I have to communicate more than I think I need to. Even if it feels like, okay, everyone should know this, I'm still sending out the message. I'm still, one of my first things is, okay, let the front desk know what's going on. Let the front desk know what's going on. Let the front desk know what's going on, because they can really help get that word out quickly. Um, yeah, it feels a little bit excessive, but at the same time, I've noticed it makes things so much smoother the more you can communicate and the more you can keep, somebody in charge. The fewer people you have to like get approvals from, like Brenda was talking about she wants to just oversee it all. It's so much easier when you have one kind of, I hate to say it, the one grown up that says the ultimate decision of, nope, you do this, you do this. The more you get into those
Yeah.
separate org charts, the harder it is to work that out. Um, I mean, it can happen, and people just need to have, really over communicate and just kind of also remember to drive back what's the end goal. I think most of our facilities are there to serve the public or our members or whoever it is, and not our own interest. So we need to make sure that we're like bringing the when we see those conversations and conflicts starting to go off the rails, is to reel people in and be like, hey, why are we here? We're here for that person and that person, and us fighting about this or trying to be inefficient isn't going to get us there. So
Mm-hmm.
all right, well, it's getting close to 10 o'clock. I'm really glad you guys jumped in and chimed in on the conversation. I'm small. I'd rather have small and more in-depth conversations, much more valuable than having, hundreds of people. So I really appreciate it. I'm going to probably set up the structure of it a little different, so it's the same Zoom link every week. It might make it a little bit easier and make it a reoccurring event. So it might look a little different, but I'm planning to keep doing this. I think I've lined up Melissa, who's been on the last couple of calls, to cover the 1 week I'm teaching a class. So really appreciate you guys. And you got anything else to add before we wrap this up?
I just want to see one day we can talk about swim teams, private rentals. They're monopolizing your pools. I want to hear everybody like that will take a little bit of time. I want to see how everybody's doing that, because that's very political on my side. Like if they don't, so that'll take a little bit of time. I know. So that's it for me.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely do that, and I'll try to cultivate some people and some resources. I know I've talked to friends that have said they could write books about the drama with swim teams.
There's books. Okay, that sounds interesting. I like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and end things here. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.